Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and today it's time for a bit of poetry. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, poetry, something that's different from me today. I am a bit of a poetry newbie. I have only really got into it in the last year, maybe about the last year, but really properly only in the last few months in kind of a big way. I've got the poetry bug basically recently, and I've been watching a few people's booktube videos on poetry, and kind of want to jump on board and share some of my favourites. Some of the folks that I'll mention a few folks who have inspired this video really sort of recently. Troy Tradup is definitely one. Troy has his own collection of poems coming out on the 1st of December called This Unexpected Time. He has been reading his poems, posting one every couple of days on his channel for the last however long. And I've been loving watching those, and I was lucky enough to be an early reader of Troy's collection. He asked me to kind of read the manuscript, and that was fantastic, and that really did get me kind of looking at poems differently, and also inspired me to go off and find more stuff. So Troy's definitely one to blame for this. Pat also to blame. So Pat, I've been enjoying Pat's poetry videos a lot recently. I'm kind of working my way through the back catalogue of Poetry Thursday videos on Pat's channel now that I've got into poetry, and I'm finding lots of poets I know nothing about. So yeah, Pat's definitely one to blame for this, and also Jen over at Literary Love 123, who shared a couple of poems just after the US election, and yeah, that kind of spurred me on to sort of share some stuff, because that really kind of showed how powerful poetry can be as, kind of a healing thing for hope. Just the expression, I think, of the expressive qualities of poetry can be, it's quite unique. And so, yeah, that definitely kind of spurred me to think, yeah, I'll do a video where I'll look at some poems that I love that bring me joy. So that's what I want to do today. This will be the first in a little series, because I'm going to split up the poems, some of my favourite poems, over several videos into kind of sort of themes, if you like, that kind of thing. Today I want to share some that are humorous poems, whether they're silly nonsense poems, whether they have great humorous wordplay, or they're bits of satire, because I do like a bit of satire. So we'll start with one from my childhood, which is a lovely bit of deafness, from A. Milne, and this is Sneezles. Christopher Robin had weasels and sneezles. They bundled him into his bed. They gave him what goes with a cold in the nose and some more for a cold in the head. They wondered if weasels could turn into measles, if sneezles would turn into mumps. They examined his chest for a rash and the rest of his body for swellings and lumps. They sent for some doctors in sneezles and weasels to tell them what ought to be done. All sorts of conditions of famous physicians came hurrying round at a run. They all made a note of the state of his throat. They asked if he suffered from thirst. They asked if the sneezles came after the weasels, or if the first sneezle came first. They said, if you teasel a sneezle or weasel, a measle may easily grow. But humour or pleasel, the weasel or sneezle, the measle will certainly go. They expounded the reasons for sneezles and weasels, the manner of measles when new. They said if he freezles in draughts and in breezels, then thiesels may even ensue. Christopher Robin got up the next morning, the sneezles had vanished away, and the look in his eye seemed to say to the sky, now how to amuse them today. So yeah, one from my childhood. I do love a bit of A. Milne. I enjoyed the Winnie the Pooh stories, but I also had kind of a book of children's verse as well. We'll stay in childhood with something even sillier. And for something even sillier, you've got to go to Edward Lear, famous for his nonsense verse, of course. And this is the New Vestments. There lived an old man in the kingdom of Tess, who invented a purely original dress. And when it was perfectly made and complete, he opened the door and walked into the street. By way of a hat, he did a loaf of brown bread, in the middle of which he'd inserted his head. His shirt was made up of no end of dead mice, the warmth of whose skins was quite fluffy and nice. His drawers were of rabbit skins, so were his shoes. His stockings were skins, but it is not known whose. His waistcoat and trousers were made of pork chops, his buttons were jujubes and chocolate drops. His coat was all pancakes with jam for a border, and a girdle of biscuits to keep it in order. And he wore over all, as a screen from bad weather, a cloak of green cabbage leaves stitched all together. He had walked a short way when he heard a great noise, all sorts of beasticles, birdlings, and boys. And from every long street and dark lane in the town, beasts, birdies, and boys in a tumult rushed down. 2 cows and a calf ate his cabbage leaf cloak, 4 apes seized his girdle, which vanished like smoke. 3 kids ate up half of his pancakey coat, and the tails were devoured by an ancient he-goat. An army of dogs in a twinkling tore up his pork waistcoat and trousers to give to their puppies. And while they were growling and mumbling the chops, 10 boys prigged the jujubes and chocolate drops. He tried to run to his house, but in vain, for scores of fat pigs came again and again. They rushed out of stables and hovels and doors. They tore off his stockings, his shoes, and his drawers. And now from the housetops with screechings descend, striped, spotted, white, black, and grey cats without end. They jumped on his shoulders and knocked off his hat, when crows, ducks, and hens made a mincemeat of that. They speedily flew at his sleeves in a trice, and utterly tore up his shirt of dead mice. They swallowed the last of his shirt with a squall, whereon he ran home with no clothes on at all. And he said to himself as he bolted the door, I will not wear a similar dress any more, any more, any more, any more, never more. So yeah, I do love a bit of Edward Lear. Okay, we'll move on to a bit of satire then. This order is a bit of a satire sandwich. I've got some silliness and then some satire and then some more silliness. So we'll start off with a couple of poems actually by Alice Duer Miller from her book Are Women People? A Book of Rhymes for Suffrage Times. And yeah, her sharp wit I love. This is called Many Men to Any Woman. If you have beauty, charm, refinement, tact, if you can prove that should I set you free, you would not contemplate the smallest act that might annoy or interfere with me. If you can show that women will abide by the best standards of their womanhood, and I must be the person to decide what in a woman is the highest good. If you display efficiency supreme in philanthropic work devoid of pay, if you can show a clearly thought out scheme for bringing the millennium in a day, why then, dear lady, at some time remote, I might consider giving you the vote. And the second one of hers is, I don't know whether you call this a poem, but I love it so much that I'm reading it. I guess you could call it a poem. This is from a section of the book which is kind of suggested campaign material for both sides of the suffrage argument. This one is called Why We Oppose Pockets for Women. 1. Because pockets are not a natural right. 2. Because the great majority of women do not want pockets. If they did, they would have them. 3. Because whenever women have had pockets, they have not used them. 4. Because women are required to carry enough things as it is, without the additional burden of pockets. 5. Because it would make dissension between husband and wife as to whose pockets were to be filled. 6. Because it would destroy man's chivalry toward woman if he did not have to carry all her things in his pockets. 7. Because men are men and women are women. We must not fly in the face of nature. 8. because pockets have been used by men to carry tobacco, pipes, whiskey flasks, chewing gum, and compromising letters. We see no reason to suppose that women would use them more wisely. So yeah, if you don't know that book, the Are Women People, I thoroughly recommend checking it out. There are some absolutely fantastic poems in there by Duer Miller. In fact, I will leave a link in the description to the Project Gutenberg page where you can view it online or download it for free as an ebook. Okay, we'll come up to date a bit now and look at one from Caroline Duffy, who I think is fantastic, absolutely brilliant poet. And this is from The World's Wife, which is a collection of poems which all of them look at kind of the wife or the woman's side, the wives, partners of men of myth, or reality in some cases. And this one is called Mrs. Sisyphus. So if you don't know the legend of Sisyphus, have a Google. That's him pushing the stone up the hill, the jerk. I call it a stone, it's nearer the size of a kirk. When he first started out, it just used to irk, but now it incenses me, and him, the absolute Burke. I could do something vicious to him with a dirk. Think of the perks, he says. What use is a perk, I shriek, when you haven't the time to pop open a cork or go for so much as a walk in the park? He's a dork. Folks flock from miles around just to gawk. They think it's a quirk, a bit of a lark. Load of old bollocks is nearer the mark. He might as well bark at the moon. That fecking stone's no sooner up than it's rolling back all the way down. And what does he say? Mustn't shirk. Keen as a hawk, lean as a shark. Mustn't shirk. But I lie alone in the dark, feeling like Noah's wife did when he hammered away at the ark, like Frau Johann Sebastian Bach. My voice reduced to a squawk, my smile to a twisted smirk, while up on the deepening murk of the hill he is giving 100% and more to his work. Yeah, I think Caroline Duffy is absolutely fantastic, especially with stuff like that where she's using, these ideas from mythology, history, what have you, to look at kind of the modern experience for a lot of women with regards to their husbands and their husbands' work. Okay, next up, another fantastic British poet, Simon Armitage. The first thing I read by Armitage was his book Walking Home, which is about him walking the Pennine Way. So that's prose, kind of memoir sort of prose in some respects. And I loved that. I loved his voice. So I went off and found some of his poetry. And my mum's a big Simon Armitage fan as well, so she could point me in that direction. So this one is called Thank You for Waiting. Thank you for waiting. At this moment in time, we'd like to invite first-class passengers only to board the aircraft. Thank you for waiting. We now extend our invitation to exclusive, superior, privilege and Excelsior members, followed by triple, double and single platinum members, followed by gold and silver card members, followed by pearl and coral club members. Military personnel in uniform may also board at this time. Thank you for waiting. We now invite Bronze Alliance members and passengers enrolled in our Rare Earth Metals Points and Rewards scheme to come forward, and thank you for waiting. Thank you for waiting. Accredited beautiful people may now board, plus any gentleman carrying a copy of this month's Cigar Aficionado magazine, plus subscribers to our Red Diamond, Black Opal or Blue Garnet promotion. We also welcome Sapphire, Ruby and Emerald members at this time, followed by Amethyst, Onyx, Obsidian, Jet, Topaz and Quartz members. Priority lane customers, fast track customers, chosen elite customers, preferred access customers and first among equals customers may also now board. On production of a valid receipt, travellers of elegance and style wearing designer and or hand-tailored clothing to a minimum value of $10,000 may now board. Passengers in possession of items of jewellery, including wristwatches with a retail purchase price greater than the average annual salary of a mid-career high school teacher, are also welcome to board. Also welcome at this time are passengers talking loudly into cell phone handsets about recently completed share deals, property acquisitions and aggressive takeovers, plus hedge fund managers with proven track records in the undermining of small to medium-sized ambitions. Passengers in classes loam, chalk, marl and clay may also board. Customers who have purchased our Dignity or Morning Orchid packages may now collect their sanitised shell suits prior to boarding. Thank you for waiting. Mediocre passengers are now invited to board, followed by passengers lacking business acumen or genuine leadership potential, followed by people of little or no consequence, followed by people operating at a net fiscal loss as people. Those holding tickets for zones rust, mulch, cardboard, puddle and sand might now want to begin gathering their tissues and crumbs prior to embarkation. Passengers either partially or wholly dependent on welfare or kindness, please have your travel coupons validated at the quarantine desk. Sweat, dust, shoddy, scurf, faeces, chaff, remnant, ash, pus, sludge, clinker, splinter and soot. All you people are now free to board. Okay, and then we will finish off with going back to some silliness with one of my absolute favourite new finds to me, and that's Brian Bilston, who I came across on Instagram, and he really got going as a poet on social media, on Twitter, I believe, or X or whatever it is now. But I found him on Instagram, and there's a couple of his that I want to read. The first one is this one. It just makes me laugh because my wife, my sister, and my mum all have this same habit, problem, and this is called bags. You have bags of bags. Collecting bags must be your bag, because you have bags with nothing in them except bags, inside of which are other bags full of bags. You have enough bags for life for 100 lifetimes. If there was a prize for the total number of tote bags, you would totes have it in the bag. Don't know why you need so many bags when all you ever put in them are other bags. I'm sure a lot of us have someone or several people in our lives, or are one of those people who does that with bags. Okay, and the final one then is one that I saw the other day, and this one's called "And Now for the Weather." Today is set to be agreeably alliterative across an assortment of areas, although the occasional metaphor may cause some faces to cloud. Idioms will be coming down like stair rods in northern regions, while the south may experience the odd outbreak of similes, like an unexpected shower of arrows. In coastal, littoral and seaside areas, synonyms remain likely. Further inland, sudden gusts of hyperbole look set to take your breath away, and a series of scattered euphemisms will have you reaching for your wellies. If you're driving, please be aware that tautologies of frozen ice are still affecting some roads after a heavy and prolonged flurry of oxymorons. And finally, from tomorrow evening, expect to see the return of some light lightotes, making next week's outlook hardly the best. So there you go. There's a few of my favourite humorous poems, as I say, whether they're wordplay like Brian Bilston, who I think is fantastic. If you don't know him and you're on Instagram, check him out. I will link in the description. And some satire as well. So there's plenty more that I can go through, and I'm sure I will return to some of these poets in the future when I do more videos. But yes, for now, I thought a little bit of humour for a Friday is probably good for the soul. I know I find that these sort of things delight me at the moment. As I say, this will be the first of a few poetry videos. I don't know when they'll come out. I'm not putting in a schedule or anything, but there will be some more coming from me on different sorts of poems, different themes, that kind of thing. some of my other favourites. But that will do for today. That's plenty for today. So thank you very much for watching today, folks. As always, do drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do let me know if you've come across any of the poems or the poets that I've talked about today. Do feel free to recommend poets or the poems, etc. you think I might like as well. I'm very open to kind of just exploring poetry more generally, and I don't know a huge amount yet. So yeah, if you think of anybody or any particular poems that you think I might like based on what I read today, then yeah, do drop those in the comments below. I will be back on Sunday with a bit of a kind of a random reading wrap up reports type thing. There's a few bits and pieces that I've read recently that I haven't talked about on the channel yet, so I will get round to doing that on Sunday, I think, and catch you up a little bit. So I do hope you'll join me for that then, but from me, for now, that's ta-ra.